morning, good afternoon, and good night. This is a great moment. Thank you so much for See Land and Building magazine. In this moment, I have a people. It's a great moment for the Land and Building. It's a one family and friend with Martin Heilmann. Yes, Martin Heilmann is a good investment in Los Cabos, and Ricardo Reyes, director of Land and Building. It's a pleasure in this moment to chat with the Martin Heilmann. Martin, thank you for coming to Los Cabos, and thank you for coming and stay in Land and Building, the bunker of Land and Building.
My pleasure. I'm always happy to be in Los Cabos.
Thank you so much for this moment and this time. How is the real estate market in USA in this moment?
I would say it's a tale of two cities, or a tale of two places. So the cities in the U.S., so let's say New York, San Francisco, L.A., Chicago, is very scary. So because two reasons. One, because of the pandemic, people in the cities they want to go out and get some land. They want to be someplace else because the cities are, they tend to be a little scary, right? There's so many people around and you got to be careful. So everybody wants to go out into the suburbs or in the rural areas. So if you're in the city, if you're an investor in one of these major cities, it's a little bit scary. But if you're an investor in like a resort area on the lakes, if you have some property in Lake Michigan, or if you have some property, in the vineyards in California, or if you have some property in upstate New York, that's where everybody wants to be right now. That's where everybody's buying. They're buying natural beauty. They're buying their oasis, someplace where they can go and feel safe and be happy. So I would say very much it's in a tremendous state of flux right now.
How do you see Mexico and Los Cabos for investment?
Well, I think it has a real opportunity. There are risks, but there's also huge
opportunity with the COVID.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, if you notice it now, we're in October, right? And October is not normally a very high season in Cabo, right? It's still maybe it's the end of the rainy season, right? But so it's it's not normally why people come. But as you see, the hotels are pretty full. People are doing pretty well. Why is that? Because Caribbean is closed. So the Americans have only a few options as to where to go to get out of the cities, to leave, to feel comfortable, to feel safe. And Cabo is one of them. Cabo still has great air flight, so it's easy to get to Cabo from Dallas, from LA. It's not too bad from Chicago. Now we're going to get direct flights again. So I think that's a huge benefit, right? So Cabo will always have the benefit of just natural beauty. People want natural beauty right now. They want to be outside of their apartment. They don't want to be outside of their home. They want to see the ocean. They want to hear the ocean. They want to forget about the pandemic. You come to Cabo, you listen to the ocean waves, you forget there's a pandemic. So,
Martin, thanks so much for coming with us. For the people that don't know who is Martin Heilmann, tell us how you know Cabo, how you start to come into Cabo, what are you doing right now in the market of the real estate in Cabo. I think for the readers and the people from Land and Building and Concreto wants to know a little bit more about you.
Okay. Well, I first came to Cabo in 2001. So I came down, at that time I was in the business of timeshare finance. So I sold financing to large timeshare developers. So, and most of my clients were in the US, they were in Orlando, or they were in Las Vegas. But I had a couple of clients in California, and those clients wanted to develop resorts here in Cabo. And they were looking to me to help them finance those projects. So I came down here in I think it was August of 2001, and I think it was a timeshare developer that doesn't exist anymore. His name was Pacific Monarch, but they ended up developing Cabo Azul in San Jose, so a very large timeshare development. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Cabo the moment I came down here. I thought this was amazing. You have this gorgeous ocean, this huge coastline that stretches because it's an isthmus. I mean, you have so much coastline and it's so beautiful, but you don't have the humidity that you have in the Caribbean because Cabo is also basically a desert. So you have this very dry, wonderful, warm, sunny climate with this gorgeous ocean, and I fell in love. So I came down for a couple more times for business when I was in that business of timeshare finance. And I always had Cabo in the back of my mind. I left the business of timeshare finance and I struck out on my own. I started investing in real estate in Chicago. About the time the financial crisis in 2009, I bought apartment buildings in the city of Chicago, 6 units, 8 units, 15 units, 17 units, so a little bit bigger. And I redeveloped them, I improved them in gentrifying neighborhoods, and as I got too many of them, and as the market for apartments in Chicago increased, I made money, I sold the apartments off, and took a step back and say, all right, what do I want to do with my life? How do I want to live my life now? And I came to Cabo and remembered how gorgeous it was, and I built a home here in Cabo, outside of San Jose, my dream home, right on the ocean,
right?
In Zacatitos.
Okay, so how the people that is thinking to invest in Cabo for a new home or building a second home, that for the next year will be a very good opportunity, because the people that you say in Chicago, New York, in California, wants to have an exit for the big cities, So you think that Cabo is an option for the people that wants a second home, and a luxury home or a custom home?
For sure. I think of Cabo to some extent as a little bit of California in Mexico. California has this beautiful coastline. California has lots of wonderful restaurants. It has all the amenities you could ever have. Cabo basically has all of that. It's at a much lower price point. To get on the coastline outside of LA or San Diego is an enormous investment. Here it still can be a large investment, but it's not nearly as much. So it's much more accessible from a financial standpoint. The cost of building is still less, and you end up with just as much or more natural beauty. So I think from that perspective, Cabo has lots of opportunities. Obviously, this is a challenging time. There's lots of people in the U.S. that are still scared that their businesses are threatened. There are other people in the U.S. that have new freedom. They have discovered that they have the freedom to work from wherever they want to work. They don't have to be in San Francisco. They don't have to be in New York or Chicago in order to, work in the technology field or even to sell in the technology field. They can work from Cabo. They could work from anywhere that has a reliable communication system. And Cabo certainly fits that bill. So I think increasingly you're going to find that people are going to work from remote areas and areas where they actually want to live rather than areas where they have to live.
After 20 years, because you start to come into 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, after almost 20 years, we know that actually you have invest in condominiums in Cabo, right?
Yes.
Tell us about it, because we know that you started that process before to the pandemic,
right.
Got you the process of the pandemic in the middle of the sales. How do you see that? Because the market, we don't expect that. Right now, we don't expect that the hotels are in the 40%, 30% of the occupation. The market, the high-level market is going well. The lower market, we know that is slowing down because it's the workers. But what you can tell us about the people that wants to invest in the lower market, for example, houses that are very affordable, mm-hmm. and what is your product? So tell us a little bit about it.
So we together built a wonderful development called Luna Park. Mm-hmm. So 24 2-bedroom, 2-bath units Really very, very nice product, very affordable. So in the neighborhood of 60,000 US all in, right? So it's got some, some nice features like it's got security, it has structured parking, it has a beautiful rooftop with some views of the ocean. So these are all things that in the long term, we know are going to make for a very nice product and a very nice investment.
So you think that this is a good product, for example, for invest?
Oh, for sure. I made my money in Chicago buying when nobody else wanted to buy. This was 2009. Nobody could get financing. Everybody was scared the banks were going under. Banks wanted to get bad loans off their sheets. Everybody had borrowed too much against their apartment buildings, and so there was fear, and whenever there's fear, there's opportunity. So I see this as a market where Mexico is somewhat similar. Financing is always a challenge in Mexico. I think as long as I've been coming to Mexico, the reason I came to Mexico was I had U.S. dollar financing. I worked for GE Capital, a huge American financial company. So that was very much in demand because historically, it's just financing in Mexico is very difficult. People, you don't have the same levels of banking transparency. You don't have the same level of just trust, basically, between the banks and the borrowers. So, unless you have a lot of money in Mexico, it's very difficult to borrow. This creates opportunity. Whenever it's difficult to borrow, there's opportunity to invest capital. That's been my philosophy.
Okay.
So that was really my original philosophy for being in Mexico.
Mexico is very difficult. Yeah. The cost is very high. Mexico, similar to USA, it's very different in Mexico for investment. The cost.
When you say cost, we have to define what the costs are. The cost of construction is much less in Mexico than it is in the U.S. Right? So the cost of legally developing a property is still less in Mexico, significantly less than it is in the U.S. The cost of financing is higher in Mexico.
It's higher in Mexico, yeah.
Than it is in the U.S. Right? So this is an opportunity. So if you don't have to, so we built Luna Park without going to a Mexican bank or taking out traditional financing. This was an all equity.
Luna Park is only in capital, no financing.
All capital, no financing, only capital.
Pure capital.
Yeah. So I would never do a 100% capital project in the U.S. There'd be no reason for it. In the U.S., I can get very cheap financing. It's very easy to get cheap financing, so it would be silly to do 100% financing in like that. But the returns that you can get in Mexico are high enough to justify 100% capital type of project, as long as you can turn it around quickly. Now, unfortunately, the pandemic came around, and so turning it around quickly is not going to happen. But the Mexico works for higher capital investment because you can get higher returns. You can get higher returns because debt is so hard to get.
Why do you think that is a good moment for investing Cabo? Or do you think that is a good moment for investing Cabo after the pandemic, in the start of the new year? What's your thought? I mean, like a foreigner, what is your thought?
As a foreigner, I still have to rely on locals for a lot of intelligence, because in order to understand if it's a good time to invest in the short term, you have to know what is the market, how many buyers are there, how many sellers, how desperate are the sellers, how aggressive are the buyers. I don't understand all of that in the short term. That's what matters in the short term. In the long term, you look at Cabo and you say, we have this beautiful ocean. Do we have, confidence in the political system in Mexico? This is something that Americans, historically have been a little skittish about. I think what you've seen in the pandemic is when there's been distress, oftentimes the peso has gotten crushed. The Mexican economy has gotten crushed. That didn't happen this time, right? So the Mexican peso took a little bit of a hit, but it's really recovered very well. The Mexican economy has recovered pretty well. I think most people think long term that Mexico is going to benefit from, the decoupling of the U.S. and China from a manufacturing perspective. People were concerned about the Trump wall, and I think everybody understands that was a lot of nonsense, that was bluster, that there's no wall. I mean, the friendship between the Mexican people and the U.S. people, and the amount of communication, the amount of people who go back and forth, the amount of Mexicans who come to the U.S., the amount of Americans who come to Mexico is too much for the relationship to fall apart. I think the Mexican institutions are stronger now than they have ever been, and I think we've seen that. So I think from that perspective, I think that's a big piece that people have been waiting for to get confidence in, to invest more in Mexico, and I think that's happening.
So you're feeling like a foreigner that is neighborhood from Cabo. You think that it's a moment that we need to take care about the invest in condos or homes or land, or you think that you need to take opportunity? I mean, the people that comes to Cabo needs to wait or needs to take opportunity of the offers that have actually in units or in the stock that we have it in the real market,
or hotels, or
or
malls,
whatever.
or apartments.
I would say there's different in the short term. If you're an American, I think it's a very nice opportunity probably to come and buy an existing property. If you want to, if you look at the opportunity to buy a vacation, or let's call it a second home in Cabo versus a second home in the Hamptons of New York, or Lake Geneva outside of Chicago, or along the coastline of Michigan, Lake Michigan, or outside of Chicago, or in the vineyards outside of San Francisco, you are going to get a lot more value in Cabo, particularly now, right? So those prices in the U.S. in those locations have been bid up hugely. I don't think you've had that same bid here in Cabo. On the higher end, my understanding is that the market has remained pretty strong. Everybody was very nervous about it, and it turns out that there was no need to be nervous, that the high end market in Cabo has been very strong. But also, like the U.S., the lower end markets in a lot of places where the workers are, where you have those people who have less savings, who are doing more of the service type industry, which has been hit harder by the pandemic, those have taken a hit. So those markets still have to recover. So that's what I see as the difference. I mean, Mexico and the U.S. is very similar in that the higher end, those markets have remained strong. Those markets that depend on the service industries, and obviously the hotels are a big service industry here in Cabo, those took a hit. Now, having said that, the hotel market, the service industry here in Cabo seems to be recovering pretty well, much stronger than the service industry in the U.S.
So you feel that if you need to give a recommendation for the people that are watching in Concreto right now and are a little bit scary about what I'm doing in Los Cabos, a lot of people think maybe I need to wait, maybe I need to buy. We don't know how is the economy in Cabo. Do you think that the economy in Mexico with our actual president is good? How do you feel it for the exterior? How you saw it?
From the outside, I think.
With the actual president in Mexico, or you say?
Mexico.
I don't know. I think we can have more confidence in the president of Mexico right now than we can in the president in the U.S. I think that's.
How do you feel like investor, foreigner? How do you feel it with that?
Long term, it's not. It's not a question. If you've seen the growth in Cabo for 20 years, even the last 10 years, the last 5 years, I mean, the growth has been huge, and it makes so much sense, right? There's so much natural beauty here. There's so much, just a high quality of life and a lower cost of living relative to the west coast of the U.S. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It has been a no-brainer, and I think it's going to continue to be a very easy investment decision in the long term. I mean, and in the short term, I mean, it seems to be that it's a pretty good time. Again, I'm not in the market day to day, but it looks like everything's held up pretty well.
I mean, you have 20 years in here. I mean, you know pretty well how it's moving.
I do, and I feel very confident in saying, hey, in 2 years it's going to be, we're going to be solid, and I believe that. But should you buy this week or should you buy this month? Should you buy here? You have to go and you have to talk to someone who's local to really understand that. But I think it's very easy to get very confident about investing your money and buying a lifestyle and buying some options here in Cabo. I think relative to what you're going to get in most of the places in the U.S., I think it's an easy decision.
For one family and friend in USA, who is a good cap rate? If you are a financial person, your team with the numbers, your number is in your mind every time. And in Mexico, what is the good cap rate in Mexico for USA citizen here for investment?
It's a good question.
You
are so hard.
You have to be very specific about the type of investment and the type of risk that you're taking, right? So the cap rate is going to be is always relative to the risk you're taking. So there's a different cap rate for apartments than there is for industrial. There's a different cap rate for retail than there is for industrial. I mean, if you go
but right now you are involved in the real estate market of condominiums.
Yeah.
So what is the expectation of on a good cap rate that you say, I prefer to invest this in Cabo or in a second home or whatever, or I prefer to put in the bank? So what is a good average percentage for an investor?
I mean, I look at this. I look at investing in Cabo, and there's even because it's still a foreign country for me. I don't live here full time, so I want a higher cap rate, right? There is more risk because of currency risk. There are just more risks. So if I'm looking in the U.S. and let's say I'm looking at apartments, okay, and let's say I'm looking at apartments in a nice, a safe area in the city in the city of Chicago, right? But it's not the nicest area. It's a up and coming area. It's gentrifying, but it's relatively safe. I might look for a cap rate in the neighborhood of, let's say, 7.5%. Okay, so if I'm looking for a cap rate here in Mexico, I'm going to look at a higher cap rate, right? So I want a stronger. Yeah, there's more risk. I want a return. That I come here because I can get that 7.5 cap rate in the U.S. because I can borrow at 4%, 4.5%. So sure, yeah. I mean, for 5 years, if you have good credit, you can get a 4% 5-year deal on an apartment building. You can't get that on a hotel. You can't get it on a retail building, but on an apartment building in a well-located area, sure, that's you could get that. I think in Cabo you're looking at something closer to. I'm going to shock like 12, 13.
12, 13. Okay.
15 is healthy.
15,
over 50
15
is
is
more
great.
than healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this is a very good point of view, Mari, Michelle, because the investors come and sometimes they don't know what to expect about the market in Cabo. After the pandemic, I think that the most important part is that you're welcome. I mean, the investors are welcome. We thought that it's healthy economy. We suffer in all the world the pandemic issues, but we want that you come and watch Cabo, watch the opportunities that we have it right now. We have a lot of stock in the high-end market, in the medium market, in the lower market. There are a lot of opportunities for rent long-term, for rent short-term. So I think that is a good opportunity. We want to know your opinion. If you have any suggestions or any advice about the people that come to Cabo to buy, to build, what you can tell us about it?
Well, I think the key thing is if you're coming, you have to understand your product from the get-go, and you have to have good local partners, right? So you have to learn the market a little bit. Spend some time here,
Okay.
Come down a couple times, talk to people, talk to lots of people. Try to get a sense of different people's reputations from other Americans who live here and Mexicans that you know who are in the area. I think that's, you know, a huge part, you know, just gaining trust, gaining some confidence, and you know, but don't be afraid. You know, I mean, there's lots of opportunity, and there are lots of friends here. So there's always people that you can ask. There's you know, and there's multiple people, so you don't have to rely on one person. You can ask lots of people, figure out, okay, what makes sense, what doesn't, what makes less sense, who really knows their stuff, and then, you know, you work with those people who really know the stuff, and, you know, who are working hard, who are, you know, who are very, very, you know, who are very interested in the market and very plugged into the market.
Okay.
Okay, very nice. Thank you so much, Marty. Is one investor for en Concreto, in Land and Building magazine. Only one question, the last one question. Marty, I'm sorry for this question, but the winner is in USA, Donald Trump or Joe Biden. What are your first casting?
I think Biden is going to win.
What?
I think Biden is going to win. But I was wrong last time.
Yeah.
I thought Clinton was going to beat Trump. I didn't think Trump would ever get nominated by the Republicans. So I've been wrong twice. I don't think I'm going to be wrong this time.
Thanks so much, Martin.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, mate. Welcome to Los Cabos. This is En Concreto with Land and Building, when investor, family and friend in Los Cabos. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Richard King in this moment, the director of Land and Building.
Gracias.
Good day.